Oh my goodness. Wow. We're at the end. We are, folks, I'm telling you right now, we are at the end right now. We are finishing Dirty Truths by Michael Parenti. It's been a wild ride. This has been really interesting, and it's just like dirty truths. Yeah, there's a lot of dirty truths out there that people just don't realize, and it's kind of hidden in plain sight, right? This reading is just, it's been eye-opening for me. But with that said, welcome to the JB Font Show. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. It's so good to see you. JB Font Show is available on all major podcast platforms like Anchor, Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. You can subscribe to me there. I'm also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can catch me on the JB Show on Sundays at 1, RBN Live on Tuesdays at 4, and the Savvy and JB Show on Thursdays at 6. Thank you to the patrons on Patreon, Coffee, as well as all of the members. Without you guys, I would not be able to have this channel. So I thank you dearly from the top and bottom of my heart for allowing me to be able to do this. Thanks to everybody for watching. This is the final reading for this book. I'm trying to figure out what's going to be next. I'm not exactly sure. I'm kind of broke. So the only book I have right now is Asada Shakur, and I'm trying to get another book because I'm trying to read two at simultaneously. I would like to get Capital by Marx. I would like to get that one. And then once I'm done with Asada, after Asada, I want to do another leftist woman author. So I'm gonna be looking into that. So I kind of want to do like both. Like I want to have a woman author from a woman perspective. It could be cis or trans. And so I want to get from their perspective, leftist politics, as well as a more feminist lens, Black or indigenous feminist lens. But then also when it comes to, the male or the men, I would like to, do like alternate and have both simultaneous at the same time. I think it's great to have that because you get both perspectives. And I also, I don't know, I'm thinking, I could do Rosa Luxemburg. There's a lot of different women out there that I can probably go with. My brain is blanking on me right now. But books do cost money, so I'm gonna have to see about what I can do there. But this is gonna be interesting. We're actually gonna be going into Michael Parenti's family business. Well, the business that his family had and how it works within the capitalist system. This is going to be an interesting one, and I'm actually excited to get into this. Also, I will be reading the ending poems in the book, as well as the about the author section, which is really short. But yeah, this is going to be exciting. And look, if you have it within you, please give a like so that we can put this out there and set an algorithm so that more people can view this type of content. And with that, let's go. This starts on page 270 of Dirty Truths by Michael Parenti. This part, chapter 5, part 3, is called The Blessings of Private Enterprise. Are you ready? All right, let's go. Years ago, my father drove a delivery truck for the Italian bakery owned by his uncle Torino. When Z Torino returned to Italy in 1956, my father took over the entire business. The bread he made was the same bread that had been made in Gravina, Italy, for generations. After a whole day standing, it was fresh as ever. The crust had just grown hard and crisp, while the inside remained soft, solid, and moist. People used to say that our bread was a meal itself. The secret of the bread had been bought by my Torino all the way from the Mediterranean to Manhattan, down into the tenement basement where he had installed wooden vats and tables. The bakers were two dark, wiry men, paesani from Gravina, who rhythmically and endlessly pounded their powdery white hands into the dough, molding the bread with strength and finesse. Torino, and then my father after him, used the time and care in preparing the bread, letting it sit and rise naturally, turning it over twice a night, using no chemicals and only the best quality unbleached flour. The bread was baked slowly and perfectly in an old brick oven built into the basement by Zitorino in 1907, an oven that had secrets of his own. Often during my college days, I would assist my father in loading out the bread truck at 5 a.m. on Saturday mornings. We delivered in the Bronx to Italian families whose appreciation for good bread was one of the satisfactions of our labor. My father's business remained small but steady. Customers acquired solely by word of mouth remained with us forever. He would engage with friendly conversations as he went along his route, taking 9 hours to do 7 hours of work. He could tell me more than I wanted to know about their family histories. In time, some groceries, restaurants, and supermarkets started placing orders with us, causing us to expand our production. My father seemed pleased with the growth of his business, but I felt a vague uneasiness about making commercial deliveries to such unconsecrated places as the Jerome Avenue supermarket. I began to wonder where it all could lead. Some months after my father had begun to build his new clientele, as if to confirm my worst qualms, the Jerome Avenue supermarket manager informed him that one of the big companies, Wonder Bread, was going into the specialty line and was offering to take over the Italian bread account. As an inducement to the supermarket, Wonder Bread was promising a free introductory offer of 200 loaves. That peculiar kind of generosity often found in merchants and bosses, the supermarket manager offered to reject the bid and keep our account if only we would match the Wonder Bread's offer at least in part, say 100 loaves. Their bread is paper compared to mine, my father protested. Indeed, our joke was, the reason they call it Wonder Bread is because after tasting it, you wonder if it's bread. But his artisan's pride proved no match for the merchant's manipulations, and he agreed to deliver 100 free loaves, 25 a day, in order to keep the supermarket account, all the while cursing the manager under his breath. In the business world, this arrangement is referred to as a deal or an arrangement or an agreement. To us, it seemed more like extortion. Got all capitalism, right? In response to those deals of this sort, my father developed certain tricks of his own. By artfully flashing his hands across the top of the delivery boxes, he would count loaves right under the noses of the store managers. 5 and 5 across. That's 25, Pete, he would point out. When in fact it was only 23. He would load 550 loaves for the morning run, and he would sell 575. Not since the Sermon on the Mount had the loaves so increased. Pop, I said to him after one of his more daring performances, "You're becoming a thief." "Kid," he said, "there's no sin to steal from them that steal from you." Individual competition and the pursuit of private gains brings out the best of our creative energies and thereby maximizes our productive contributions and advances the well-being of the entire society. Economics 101. I left for a few years to go to graduate school, only to return home in 1959 without a penny in my pocket. I asked my father to support me for a semester so then I could finish writing my dissertation. In return, I offered to work a few days a week on the bread truck. My father agreed to this, but he wondered how he would explain to his friends and neighbors that his son was 25 years old and still worked without full-time employment. "Kid, how long can you keep going to school and what for?" he asked. "All those books," he warned me, "are bad for your eyes and bad for your mind." "Well," I said, "I'm getting a PhD." To this, he made no response. So I put in a few days of a week of hard labor on the truck. Nor did he complain. In fact, he needed the help and liked having me around, as he told my stepmother, who told me. When the bakers asked him how come, at the age of 25, I was working only part-time, he said, "He's getting the PhD." From then on, they called me Professor, a term that was applied with playful sarcasm. It was their way of indicating that they were not as impressed with my intellectual efforts as some people might be. Tea time. Good stuff. On that day, on the day my dissertation was accepted, I knew I had to receive my PhD. I proudly informed my father. He nodded and said, "That's good." I don't know, for some reason, I'm getting kind of like a Robert De Niro, like, "Yeah, that's good." Then he asked me if I wanted to become a full-time partner in the bread business, working with him on the truck every day. With all the education out of the way, maybe I would be ready to do some real work. I almost said yes. One day, the health inspectors came by and insisted we could not leave the bread naked in the store aisles and open display boxes, exposed to passers-by who might wish to touch or fondle the loaves with their germ-ridden fingers. No telling what kind of infected people might chance into a supermarket to fondle the loaves. So my father and I were required to seal each loaf in a plastic bag, thus increasing our production costs, adding hours to our labor, and causing us to handle bread twice as much with our germ-carrying fingers. But now it looked and tasted like modern bread because the bags kept the moisture in, and the loaves would get gummy and their own humidity inside their antiseptic plastic skins, instead of forming a crisp, tasty crust in the open air. Then some of the bigger companies began in earnest to challenge our restaurant and store trade, underselling us with an inferior quality Italian bread. At about this time, the price of flour went up, and the son of the landlord from whom Zintarino first rented the bakery premises a half-century before raised our rent substantially. "When it rains, it pours," my father said. So he tried to reduce costs by giving the dough more air and water and spending less time on the preparation. The bakers shook their heads and went on making the imitation product for the plastic bags. Pop, I complained, the bread doesn't taste as good as it used to. It's more like what the Americans make. What's the difference? They still eat it, don't they? He said with a tight face. But no matter what he did, things became more difficult. Some of our old family customers complained about the change in the quality of the bread and began to drop their accounts. And a couple of the big stores decided it was more profitable to carry the commercial brands. Not long after, my father closed the bakery and went to work driving a cab for one of the big taxi fleets in New York City. In all the years that followed, he never mentioned the bread business again. Capitalism. It even affects small businesses in a bad way. Small businesses get shafted because you have these bigger businesses that can afford to take the loss and it undercut small businesses. You can see this with Amazon, Walmart, Target, these huge businesses that undercut, and these smaller businesses, these mom and pop shops, they can't survive. So you see this actually happen with Michael Parenti's father, Papa Parenti. You know, it's kind of funny. A lot of times people will think because I'm a socialist, I believe that the government's going to take care of everything. It's like, not really. The definition of capitalism is workers owning the means of production. Commerce can still happen and does still happen under socialism. It just does, right? So, meaning somebody like me, why I say open a business making jewelry, I'm a worker and I own the means of my own production, and I'm selling and I'm taking the profit for myself. Now, what would be capitalist about it is if I own the means of production and I have an employee, and that employee does not have a say over how the business is operated, and they do not collect the profits, and I just pay them a wage. But in order to make more profit, I also undercut their wages in order to make more profit because they need to make more in labor, and I need to pay them less for their labor in order for me to make more. Well, that's how capitalism works. If it was a socialism, well, if I'm working, if I have my own business, somebody wants to work for me, guess what? I'm now sharing the ownership because their labor is literally also helping keep the business afloat. And so, of course, they deserve, half the profits, because if they're doing half the labor, they deserve half the profits because they're literally helping me. So guess what? They get half. And plus, when it comes to deciding how the business is ran, it's shared equally of both of us. We come to an agreement. So that's basically what it is. There's no exploitation of the person that's with me. I'm not being exploited. They're not being exploited. It's a mutual agreement. And so that's basically what socialism is. And through that, when workers own the means of production, guess what? Workers are also running the government. So then instead of it being profit centered, it's more people centered. And if it's people centered, then these massive businesses, these massive conglomerates that built themselves up basically off the exploitation of people, they don't exist, which means you'll have more mom and pop shops. You won't have these big chains. Imagine living in a town where you have, a couple nice pizza spots, maybe a Mediterranean spot. You want to get your shoes repaired, just go to getting your shoes repaired instead of having to depend on consumerism to buy new shoes. You just go to a shoe repair shop. Commerce and capitalism are not the exact same thing. So, to the poems. Speak truth to power, my love. Speak truth to power, my love, and watch their sleek smiles disappear. The gatekeeper's face hardens from the unaccustomed exposure to those who should feel only shame are filled with righteous puffery. Meanwhile, the loyal oppositionists and labor dealers, academic acolytes and kept scribes all sniff the wind and test the times, trimming their sails, ready about. With elaborate casualness, they flash their ideological credentials. With earnest asides, they counsel self-censorship, urging you to a smaller voice to gain a bigger audience as they twist themselves in a tighter circle, twisting for their credibility. Does this remind you of anybody? They know how to show courage against easy targets. Waiting for an approved glance, they demand faultless standards from besieged infant revolutions. A critical distance they keep when victims fight back and win. They do mainstream imitations, responsible critics from Pragmatists Incorporated, and flash their anti-menace pose as they seek entry to the reception gate. But you, my love, standing outside under the chill glare of mean eyes, you just speak truth to power and feel your power rise. Your life itself, an unsung testimony to fight back and fight forward against their steel and gossamer. Moving quietly in a raucous history, the trickle becomes a tide until one day the soldiers look the other way or melt into the crowd, drawn by their padding of a million footsteps. My lords squawk urgent commands to stop the insolent dance. My lords sit in their bayonet temples, calling upon the furies of private interest, hurling their incantations. And you stand there like 1,000 legions and speak truth, remembering how the tides can break down walls. Speak truth to power, my love. Next poem. Young people are different. I want you to think about the Gen Zs and this one. Young people are different. Hostages in their own homes, kept alive by the telephone, fully animated only when taking flight in rough formation. They rebel, so better to submit to their totalitarian peerage, worshiping stenographic gods, spirits gyrating to an endless beat from Memphis to Moscow, from Tokyo to Tanzania, moving in unison, regiments of youth, bonded to their cassette cults, beat to each other, wanting it both ways. Stacy, Tracy, Buffy, and Tiffany, Kevin, Brian, Ryan, and Jamie, Dion, Tyrone, Dwayne, and Fawn incorporated for angst with genius and for unhappy crisis, giggling at every mishap, a passion for the irrelevant green hair and evasive eyes. Worse still, unwilling to drink from your fountain with no loyalty to your struggles, no applause for your past glories, no terribly impressed by your words, seeing you only in the present, the sacrifices of yesterday being little against the opportunities of today. Don't be too harsh on them, for they have struggles of their own and sacrifice for our planet's dwindling legacy. Our young people, Yuri Andropov said, are not bad, only different. We could say as much about the world we leave them. Last poem. To my son, as I contemplate my death. Upon my departure, grieve not too fiercely, for casting across that spaceless light like Saturn's orbit dimmed by distance, waiting to touch you, I shall be transformed, only that. After a life answering its call, fretting over shadows on the cave wall, for vain promises not really desired, yet with sense enough to pit a middling talent against majestic goals, a small walk-on part for a better world. Now to find beyond the dark passage a world of luminous wonder and joyous comprehension of things you and I pondered. When you were scarcely 10 years old, summarizing that the personality cannot capture the soul, but the joyful soul remembers the personality. I'll not hesitate to re-enter, but I shall move in another time, urging your guardians to perfect diligence, cheering you on from across a mute universe. Yet grieve a little, for who knows what deposit of love can survive that distance, when even the prodigy of your metaphysics and the protective ferocity of a father's heart cannot produce certitude. When one's composition is immolated by time, never to recompose. Never again these hands, these eyes, a dreadful certitude that creates the pain of doubt. So I ask you in your later years, in a quiet moment, to keep the memory of our company and our struggle and the loyal, unfinished love for each other. Ciao, bambino. In the fading cosmic light, two little boys embrace goodnight. About the author. Michael Parenti is considered one of the nation's leading progressive thinkers. He received his PhD in political science from Yale University in 1962 and has taught at a number of colleges and universities. His writings have been featured in scholarly journals, popular periodicals, and newspapers. Dr. Parenti lectures around the country on college campuses before religious, labor, community, peace, and public interest groups. He has appeared on radio and television to discuss current issues or ideas from his published works. Tapes of his talks have played on numerous radio stations to enthusiastic audiences. Audio and videotapes of his talks are sold on a non-for-profit basis. Dr. Parenti lives in Berkeley, California. We're done. Finished. Did you like the stream? Did you like the reading? Was it good? Are you subscribed? I plan to do more of these. This ain't stopping. Ain't nobody stopping this train that we're on. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. Ain't no stopping us now. Yeah, it's quite interesting to see how even capitalism from a business owner, a small business owner's perspective, shows that even still you're subject. You're subject to being shafted, exploited, run amok. That's the way capitalism works. And this system continuously and unabashedly puts people at odds with each other and puts in a system that continuously depresses our need for a thriving existence, a sustainable existence. That's capitalism. And this is what Dr. Parenti talks about all the time. So, with that, I got to figure out which book I'm going to be reading because I don't have the money to get another book just yet. But I definitely want to choose another book. Part of me really wants to read Marx first, Marx and then Lenin. But I also want to get into some other revolutionary figures as well. So we'll see. I mean, there's always James Baldwin. I'll probably do James Baldwin, you know. Or Kwame Ture. I can do Kwame Ture. So many people. I'll eventually get to them all, but this is exciting, man. And you know what's funny about me is that being raised very religious, it's like I had to preach door to door, and we had to read, a lot, and most, if not just about every book I read was based on, publications from that particular religion. I never actually read for my own consumption. Really, I felt I had to. It was under, a necessity, because I was part of this organization. It wasn't something that I wanted to do on my own. But this I wanted to do on my own. And the fact that I was able to finish these books is actually pretty cool. And the funny part about me is that I hated reading when I was younger. Of course, my reading and reading comprehension weren't that bad, but I just didn't like it. For me, it was like I needed something to see and I needed something to hear. So I was more visual and auditory in my learning. But now I've gotten better. And I'm quite proud of myself. But that still doesn't take away from the people who need to use audiobooks. From some of the people who need things, like mediums like this. Because not all of us learn or absorb information the same way. And the beauty of that is it shows the diversity of us and how we learn. And the fact that I was able to do this and to put this out there so that people can hear and also get some commentary, I think I feel privileged to be able to do that. So thank you. Well, off to the next one. And look, we'll be continuing the reading on another book. Of course, the next reading for Asada Shakur's book, her autobiography, is already up. So you guys can tune into that. And I will make an announcement. So stay tuned. I'll make the announcement on here on YouTube as well as on my Substack. So if you guys are not yet subscribed to my Substack, go ahead and subscribe to my Substack, because that's where you guys get alerts. So you guys can get alerts into your email. And also alerts for when I go live or put out videos like this, because I don't trust the algorithm that much. So thank you. Also, did you like the stream? Are you a subscriber? Because I try to put out videos like this. Also, just to let you guys know, this Tuesday, be sure to tune in, because good Lord, bright. Due Dissidents will be on with me this Tuesday. And so I cannot wait to have them on, to talk to them about their journey, about their thoughts, about different things in independent media, about what's going on in the world today from their perspective as leftists. I cannot wait. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be exciting. So yeah, thanks to all the patrons on Patreon, Coffee members, as well as anybody that's sending any type of mutual aid my way. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this. The struggle is real, but there's a lot to do. You have a lot to look forward to. Keep reading. Whether you're listening to the reading, or you're watching the reading, or you're looking and reading the reading. Keep reading. And it's just like I told my niece. When a tree stops growing, what happens? Inevitably, it dies. My message to you is never stop growing. Mwah. Forehead kisses. Water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. And reading is fundamental. Love you.